we have a lot of questions going on about Ramses and his DNA and chromosomes being linked to the Israelites and Hebrews. Before we get into that factor, I would like to say that we need to do the minus factor. What the minus factor is minusing out those that exist today, other races and nations. So get rid of all the Caucasians, all of the other people, the whole 9 yards, and then basically just stick what I would say is the Canaanites and you know, the people from India and all them. All right, that's it. But when you get up to a certain region, that was just black on black crime. It was all black. It was black on black crime, and that's what was going on. You had a lot of black rulers. That's how atrocities, transgressions, and sins started coming into the picture a lot. They were picking up a lot of stuff from a lot of the other little races that were around and the other nations, because of the fact that there was a split in the Old Testament of the genealogy and the DNA. Understand, Satan was trying to create his own race and nation of people to overthrow what God had created as a dominion over the earth and Satan. So this was something that has been going on since the beginning, all right, that is going on today, but just in a different form and fashion, covered up by technology and what the people would call the modern times. So let's get out of the sorcery box. Let's get out of the angle, step into the grafted olive tree bearing a fruit of well-roundedness, so we can come to an understanding and a discernment. For real. With that being said, back then it was black on black crime. You go in the hood where it's black people, it is black on black crime. There is nobody out there shooting up high schools, shooting up movie theaters, and on the outside have this pretensions of being quiet, nice, and calm. Nobody's seen it coming, but then it just pops out of nowhere. You do not see these traits or these attributes or any of these things happening. Pretending to be one way and then acting another, then going and like the Oklahoma City bombing. Nobody's seen that coming. That man was in the military. So with that being said, it was black on black crime. You see the same attributes back then that you do now. And if you go to Genesis chapter 12, it tells you the whole daggone story about how Abraham had to leave the land of Canaanite. They was poor, they was ruining the land and doing all this stuff that they do now. Now, who are the Canaanites? Benjamin Franklin's DNA has been linked to the Canaanites. I have left some Google pages or whatever. It's hard to sort of understand, but I will leave the links down below. Okay? So you can look at it. That money that you have, okay, is Canaanite money. You look at those bills that you have, there are Canaanite faces on those bills. It's got linked to Canaanites. How it happened, when it happened, the atrocity that happened, how they got pale skinned and all that other stuff is beyond me. Those are the Canaanites. All right? So that's Canaanite money. You have to really get deep into it, which is why the scriptures say don't worry about genealogy. A lot of this stuff will just confuse you, mind-boggling, give you a headache, and the whole 9 yards. Is spiritually supposed to be in tune because you understand something. The book of Romans is called Romans for a reason, because they got brought into the fulfillments, all right, of the riches and the power of the world to see what they would do. He did the same thing with Pharaoh. He did the same thing with King Nebuchadnezzar. He did it in Babylon. He did it in Sodom and Gomorrah. He did it in the times of Noah. Now go ahead. Let them have all this stuff and let them destroy this stuff. And then bam, I'm going to come and do it. But nobody's seen it coming. Why? Because of technology and modern times being the sorcery veil over your eyes, making you think the way you think, to socialistic groups, socialistic sightings, that you won't even talk to somebody unless they dress, act, or unless you meet them or somebody gives them a resume, because you would rather go off of what? Somebody else's opinion rather than your own So with that being said, that was black on black crime. Genesis chapter 12 tells you the story. Abraham went up there. He told Sarah, yo, you looking good. So check this out, you my sister, because I know they're going to try to bag you. We need to try to get some bread and some money because things is all messed up. She's like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this for you because I love you. All right, bam. Now they on some Bonnie and Clyde stuff. They go up there, and as soon as they go up there, the Pharaoh has all these plagues and stuff happening. He comes back and he says, guess what? You can take her. Take all the stuff I gave you because I thought she was your sister and take some more. Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Now, how did Pharaoh even know that she was his wife? She didn't snitch and say anything. So how did he know? Now, if we go back to the text, like a lot of our ancestors have, the Jamaicans, the Ethiopians, and all that other stuff, and some of the Africans, now that are Semitic and whole nine yards, you will understand that all black people aren't the same. All right? With the black on black crime, there are different sections of blacks. Okay, you even have bad blacks in the Semitic ones. So, yes, was Egypt, was Salem, which is where you get Jerusalem from. All right, were they worshiping the one true God? Yes, they were. We'll get into all this real quick. So as you read it, that story just gives you that, and then Lot, and then boom, and then him and Lot go their way. But they don't really tell you the details. But if you read them Ethiopian Jamaican texts, you go into Jasher, Enoch, and some of the other books that they have in there, you'll see that these scrolls that we originally found and then made up, because J's only 500 years old. J don't exist in the Hebrew alphabet, and the Dag sure enough don't exist in the Greek alphabet. See the deception? Oh yeah. So with that being said, all right, J came up in the 15th century during the slavery time, Atlantic slave trade, all right, and Yiddish and Jewish is a 14th century word. Hello. That was black on black crime, and that was the time of back then. So if you read those texts, it tells you that Pharaoh was praying to the one true God and told him, why you bring these plagues upon me, Lord? Don't my nation, don't we follow your laws? Don't we do this? Don't we do that? So the rumors of Ramses III being Semitic, being of the Israelites and the Hebrews, yes, that is true. Why is it true? Because they were running things, they were doing stuff. Remember the transgressions and the sins? That's when they started falling. You had the bad ones doing this, you had the good ones still trying to keep things together. Then they were copying off the Hamites and everything else. And then you had the Hittites, and they were just getting the Indian women. The Indian women, they had all the gods, because you know what? They already bossy and they got an attitude you can already tell even in these times. So they was pushing it. It told you that Esau married one of them, and they was just making the family people miserable. Because you know what I mean, they really bossy and just as loud as black people. So you have to understand cultures, races, and nations. See, they know all this. People from India know about all the Bangladesh, all this stuff. You can divide them and do all the stuff you want to, but in the end, they know they all won. So they smart enough to know that. So with that being said, getting back to the black on black crime, boom. He came, that's the real story behind that. Just like there's other stories about Abraham and his parents kicking him out the house, doing all this stuff to him, throwing him in the fire, and then, you know, the fire didn't consume him. There's a whole bunch of stories that they didn't put in there that they cut out. So when the one true God did this, because understand, even meant, all right, that's when he woke the Pharaoh up, because they did worship back then. How all that stuff changed and everything else is for another story. But then he gave it to him, and that's when he went. He went and he found the kings and did all this other stuff. And then Melchizedek that taught him righteousness, that had no genealogy, no origin. Now we know daggone well that an angel has an origin. It's got some kind of genealogy, because we know God made it. He made them. Excuse my language. So you also know for a fact that the Lord doesn't have no genealogy. You know he doesn't have no origin. You know he doesn't have any parents. And then Yeshua in the New Covenant said that he came to fulfill and take the place of Melchizedek in the laws of Melchizedek. Then he says, I am the son of the Father. All right, I am here for this. I am the Messiah. So he comes in, he says that, and he puts Melchizedek in there and to replace it being the high priest and all this other stuff. And the disciples, all right, behind him, let the others know. And 144,000 that they tried to call whatever name that were the priest, like the high priestly people that didn't sleep with anybody, didn't drink, didn't do anything. All right, we were the 144,000 that is spoke of in Revelations. All right, all of them said the same thing. So who was Melchizedek? Melchizedek was God that was in Salem. Get it? Jerusalem, because Jay's only 500 years old. All right, so you're right, Israel. All right, and with that being said, that was Yahweh. You had the Canaanites run around because of the separation of the genes and all this other stuff. Boom. This goes all the way back to David when he was fighting the giants. That was them too. They had little offsprings and all this other stuff. So you don't worry about genealogy because this is not an angle. All right. This is a well-rounded thing. This is a grafted tree bearing fruit. I'm just breaking it down because people have questions. So with that being said, the whole book of Romans was written for them. Why? Because it said that he will bring you in by the word of God, which we see this whole stuff is built on religion, everything in the world, all right, and give you the richness and the fulfillment of the world by the fruit of the land and the sword you shall live by, all right, and the material things that you got to share with them. Why? Because he's did it with Pharaoh, he's did it with Nebuchadnezzar, he's did it in the time of Lot, he did it in the time of Tower of Babel, he's did it in even in the book of Job's, and even in the book of Jonah, he has done it. So since they wanted, let's see if they're going to do right with it. Because it was always the transgressions of sins with these people. No matter if they were running things or not, they always had to split. They always had to go and do something else. They always had to follow after and do the other God things with the other people and everything else. Understand, the Moabites were who? Where were Lot's kids? That's where the 6th star comes from. A lot of people don't peep this out. So that was black on black crime back then. All of it. Then when you get into 2 Kings, that's when, then as the story goes on and the righteousness and all this other stuff, then you start getting into Kings. Then you start getting into, that's when the leprosy and all that stuff kicked in, and Moses and the leprosy kicked in. And then that's when everybody who was albino and changed had to leave the camp and go live somewhere else. Then you can fit that in the history with the Caucasus Mountains and all this other stuff, and then one person fathering half of Western Europe and this, that, and the third. So, and the dollar bills and the Canaanites and all that other stuff, and Benjamin Franklin's DNA being linked to the Canaanites, a lot of our presidencies, everything on that dollar bill, they're all related to Canaanites. A lot of people don't know this stuff. The Canaanites and the Hamites and all them were builders. They were good with technology. They, you know, the Lord said something about going to hell, unlocking the gates of hell, this, that, and the third. It spoke about it in Revelations. That you let Satan loose to fool the nations. A lot of people don't see what's going on because they don't have a spiritual understanding. You need to come to a discernment, an understanding, open up your mind. You have the free will. Ask God to guide you through this and just show you, and he will. So there was your answer for that. All right? It was black on black crime. And Egypt and the pharaohs and them did worship the one true God at one time. That's a whole different ball game how things changed up, but that's the whole story. That's how the pharaoh knew.